one. It's been a little bit since I put up a video. I've just been busy with a lot of other stuff, engine-wise, and then just work stuff. But not apologizing to anybody, it's just the way it goes. I am going to try something that is kind of coming down to like the last few things that this issue could be caused by. You know, when I did those drag racing videos, and I was having issues in sport mode where it would not shift at high R's, like close to red line between first and second. It would literally like hit rev limit, cut fuel, and not shift at all. Happened 2 or 3 times. Usually at a second or third run. First runs would be fine. Everything's okay in the transmission. I just cannot point to any single thing that would be causing that mechanically. So I'm kind of at my wit's end a little bit about trying to figure out what the problem would be. Now, gosh, this has to have been right after I bought my G. My friend in Texas who had a G35 made a comment that at the time I kind of just dismissed as, you know, hey, you know, this was a long time ago and he was doing weird things to his car, especially since he was putting a big sound system in it and he had to do, you know, the appropriate wiring for that. But he mentioned a ground wire upgrade that could potentially help the transmission. I dismissed it at the time, like, okay, well, not pseudoscience, but I didn't see any logic behind it. Well, when you've eliminated all possibilities, whatever's left, however improbable, is your answer, as Spock said. That's Occam's razor. Well, about to shave. So I'm going to try this ground wire fix. I looked it up, read some posts, and got dimensions on the wire, how to cut it to length, and where it goes in the engine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll see if it cures anything. If it sharpens up the shift, that's the legend behind it. You know, there's been, I don't know if it's anecdotal, circumstantial evidence after people have done this. They have said that their transmissions have shifted faster and firmer. We're going to find out. Got to go ahead and prep the wires, get them cut to length, terminated, and then install it on the car, and we'll see where this leads. There's, I guess, some side benefits to this. Apparently it clears up the audio quality in the car. Now, at its base, it makes sense that if you have insufficient grounding or there is electrical leakage in your system, it can wreak havoc on the electronics. It can cause, well, erroneous codes for one thing. It can create lag in computing devices. If data is lost and it has to resend requests for data because the electrical path is compromised in some way, I know it can create issues. So there is some logic behind this. Now, no science. I have no science behind it, just the logic of it. So what this does is it improves the grounding of the entire car. Basically creates a circular ground path for everything. You know, it's going to attach in 3 different components, from the passenger side through the engine block to the driver's side, grounded to the battery, obviously, and then to grounding posts that are already existing on the car. But it's adding thicker grounds and 2 or 3 more actual grounds than the car had originally. So, and after I do this, we'll show you the install video on it and how to cut it to length and what it looks like when you're done. I'm really curious and very hopeful that this will actually solve some of these issues. As I mentioned, I kind of run out of options out of just replacing the transmission or having it rebuilt. And because it is a shifting issue where there isn't an actual like slippage issue, or there isn't something mechanically noisy or something that gives me some misgiving that my transmission is mechanically unsound, it could very well be an electronic issue. And we'll see if this improves it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on prepping the wires, show you how to cut them to length, terminate them, get some heat shrink on them to get them ready to put in the car. All right, so what you're gonna need to do this materials-wise is about 12 feet of 8-gauge low oxygen copper, pure copper if possible. You're gonna need about, 12 feet is an estimate based upon the thread that I'm using to do this. There's a post in one of the G forums that I'm going to link in the description below. It's going to give you the exact step-by-step directions, the lengths to cut, how to tie them together, and where to install them on the vehicle. This is the template I'm using. So got the 8-gauge wire. You're also going to need some crimp connectors, lugs. I just bought this kit and it's good to have around. It's got a bunch of heat shrink and a bunch of various size crimp connectors on it, ring terminals, and this whole thing here was like $23. It's a hell of a deal. So I would just go ahead and get this. If you don't, just run to the hardware store and get the specific number of connectors that you need. This assortment's gonna get used up over time, I'm sure. So anyway, got my crimps and shrinks. I've got a pair of heavy-duty crimpers for the size wire and a set of wire cutters. You don't have to use, I mean, this came with the kit with this tool. These are really good cutters right here. But some way to cut it, even a Dremel. Then next thing, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the wire to the appropriate lengths based upon that thread post and get the terminals installed and the shrinks installed and show you what the loom looks like when it's done. Okay, now when you're done, you're gonna end up with 3 pieces. And this whole thing took maybe 10 minutes to put together. You're gonna have a 2-wire piece, a 4 gauge crimp connector here, and then the single wires have 8 gauge connectors on them. You'll see they're heat shrunk down. So that's one piece. And you're gonna have a single wire somewhere. I swear it's here. Right here, it's just the 8 gauge with 2 8 gauge ring connectors on it of the appropriate length as per the instructions that I posted below. Then you're going to have this piece here with 3 wires, 8 to a 4 to a 4, that's gauge, to an 8. This 3-wire one is the right hand side one. One of these lines goes straight to the battery, to the negative, and then it goes to the fender ground and then to the engine ground. Then the single wire crosses over from the right hand side to the left hand side on the engine. Then the 2 connector goes from the engine to the left hand fender to an existing ground post. This is super easy to put together. These kits are sold for $100+ in materials. You can't include tools in the cost of any project because you get to keep those, but it was around $50, and I have actually some red wire that came with this wire kit, so I have 15 feet of red wire right now that I could use on other projects. So you cut that in half if you can just get the bulk wire. $30 to $40 to put this together, and you have a ton of crimps and heat shrinks left over. Parts it out, probably $12, $13 of materials in this. Now the next step, of course, is to get it put on the car. I'm going to go ahead and get the car prepped for it, get the covers off, get the engine or the battery negative off, and then I'll take a little video just kind of linking with my fingers where everything goes, and then I'll install it and look at the finished product. Okay, so we're under the engine now. I've got the battery tray removed and I have got the negative terminal removed. You have to take the nut that secures the negative terminal all the way off, since we're using ring connectors, not spade connectors. So that first piece with the 3 wire is going to go under the battery tray to the negative, attached there. And it comes down to, I may have to take this side intake off, but there is a ground on the fender. I'll locate it, but it's in the instructions. There's a ground bolt we're going to use on the fender here, and it goes from there to one of these bolts. I think this one right here on the front of the engine. Then the single connector goes from one of these and loops over here to one of these grounds on the left side fender, and then that 2-wire goes from here, one of these others, attaches to the bolt that holds the dipstick on, and then this bolt down here behind the water pump, you see there's a ground wire right there. So the other side of that the 3rd connection on that 2-wire one, attaches to here. So I'm going to go ahead and get all this taken apart the rest of the way and get the rest of the install done. Okay, it is installed. So connector A went through the loom, the grommet, into the battery tray box, and I have yet to connect it to the negative because I'm not quite done yet. Then connector B went to the ground position here on the right hand fender,
I did have to move my left, well, I guess that's the right hand side intake to get under here. Connector C goes to this location on the cam cover, and that takes care of the right hand side harness. Then the center harness goes to this ground location here, and then you take it over under your air box or your intakes, and it goes to the first ground connector here on the left hand fender. Then connector, I guess it'd be left hand side, it's connector H goes to the strut tower, one of the strut tower bolts right here on the left hand side. And then G goes to the top ground, master ground right here on the engine cover. And then HI, I think is the last one, goes to the second ground on the left hand side fender. Now, a couple things. You do want to make sure you loom them underneath existing wires and watch that they're not interference in anything moving. The only one I have some reservation about is this, it's the third lead from the right hand side harness. It is not touching the belt, but that wire there is close. So I'm gonna try to find a way to zip tie it, maybe zip tie it to the hose, or actually if I lift it up here, I can zip tie it to this little harness right here. Keep that up out of the way. This wire here, either one of these second and third legs of the right hand harness wouldn't hurt to make them maybe an inch longer than what he said. So just cut them long, and you can loom them out of the way if they're a little excessive. Those are the only things that were a little tight. Everything else is perfect. The center one fit perfectly, and the left hand side one fit perfectly. I didn't show you the connector A, B, C. C goes to the bolt that holds the bracket for the oil dipstick right here. Now, since that's done, I'm going to go ahead and put the air box back, or my intake back on, and connect the negative ground and start her up, make sure there's no issues. Okay, it's all buttoned up and running. Got negative put back together and tight. See no sparks, no smoke. That's a good sound, good sign. Listen to the radio briefly. It's hard to say. I'm not a big audiophile, so I couldn't really tell you if it's improved the audio or not. That's not my goal anyway. So everything looks all right. I'm going to go ahead and throw a couple zip ties on, take it for a test drive.
Okay, back from the test drive. First thing I want to say is there were no engine codes. Nothing was out of the normal. It did kind of a default ECU relearn by having the battery disconnected for that 30 minutes. So I drove it around for a while. I took it up to the gas station, put some fresh 93 in it, got it up to a good operating temperature, and went to a spot and did a couple hits. And I actually can't believe I am saying this. That shit worked. I immediately felt firmer, faster shifts, especially from first to second. It hit hard and it hit quick. I'm beside myself. I mean, I'm so happy about this. Of course, we have to put some more miles on it, and normal operating, driving, it felt kind of the same, except on the speed wise, I need to qualify that. It didn't feel exactly the same. The speed between the shifts were leisurely, like we know these G37, G35 transmissions were, but you weren't pulling high RPMs, the line pressure wasn't up high on the transmission. They're designed for comfort with a little bit of sport if you want it. But regardless of whether or not they were soft, they were quicker, even under normal driving. If this holds up, and I'm going to keep testing it out every chance I get, I'm going to, beat on it a little bit. This is a hell of a deal for the price and the effort. I mentioned it took about 10 minutes to assemble the wiring harnesses themselves, and took about 30 minutes to install it. Those instructions that guy put in that post were spot on and very easy to follow. So here's my advice. First of all, the disclaimer. If you're going to do this to your car, you do so at your own risk, okay? My experience does not guarantee your experience. All you can do is take my word for it, read everybody else's take on it. There's probably as many people out there that say that it doesn't work as people that have said that it does work. That was my experience when I was researching this. I saw no harm in proceeding. I'm not afraid of electrical. I do electrical work, you know, not professionally, but I have no fear of doing it. I understand electric currents and circuits and everything like that, so I have no fear of it. But if you do that, just please be careful. Follow good practices. Always make sure your negative is disconnected when you're doing any electrical work to your car. Not just disconnected, make sure it's tucked out of the way of the top of the battery so it doesn't accidentally get jostled and make contact when you're in the middle of handling a circuit. But go ahead, you know, if you're up to it, give it a shot. It was, like I said, it was like $12, $15 of materials and in total an hour of my time, and it has made a hell of an improvement on these shifts. Don't know if there's enough time left in the season, and I am actually still waiting on the Z1 test pipes that I'm going to replace these Megan Racing pieces of crap with. Apparently Z1 is like a lot of other people, and this is my rant against Z1 right now. They didn't put on their website that they were built to order. I thought these would be in stock, but I got an email like a day and a half after I ordered them saying, we're in the process of manufacturing your parts and we will give you updated shipping notification, blah, 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 paraphrasing. But the bottom line is I have no idea when they're going to show up. But when I get them, I want to put them on. And what I was saying is I don't know if there's enough time left between if I get those in time to actually hit the drag strip again this year. I hope there is, especially now in the fall. The weather's going to be super chilly, really good air density, get some good runs going. But I want to run it. I want to beat it hard like 2 or 3 times in a row like I did at the drag strip those first 2 times and see if that issue between first and second appears. If it does not, and these shifts hold up as fast as I just experienced them, this is an amazing deal. And I would highly recommend that you do it if you're up to it. If you do it right, it will cause no harm. It is just a ground circuit. All it is giving the electrical path a little less resistance, a little easier time to complete its run around all the circuits. And faster electronics, faster computers, faster everything. It makes sense in that respect. So yeah, super happy with it. Side note updates on the engine. The small block I'm putting together, good news, with an asterisk. Everything in life is with an asterisk. The block is at the machine shop. I was able to get it up there about 2-3 weeks ago. Bad asterisk is that they're backed up. You know, they had to shut down like everybody else, and they had all this work ready to do, but they couldn't do it. So I'm being told like 6 to 8 weeks to get that block back. But that's okay. This is a project engine, and you know, it may be for the better. Now, I have a time to work on the G if these parts come through, and I'll just tackle this engine over the winter at my leisure. Make sure I do it right. I fight my natural urge to rush things. Just chill and enjoy the process. So cool thing on the engine, it's at the machine shop, and those videos will be coming up hopefully within the next month and a half. I'm just throwing that out there. But thank you for watching again. Special shout out to the gentleman that left those instructions in that post, which you will see the link in the description. Absolutely 100%. Read through those 2, 3, 4 times before you do this. But if you do, simplest project in the world with great results. Thanks for watching. If you like this and you like content with the G and you want to follow up on this engine building I'm doing, please check out the previous videos on that. There's 3 on the engine build and more to come. Like and subscribe so you get notifications and you know when these videos hit. And I thank you all for watching and have yourselves a great time.